just check to make sure we're online.
I'm sorry? Okay, step over my truck. It's not a question. I'm telling you.
All right. There we go. We are online. Okay, very nice. Alrighty. Oh, let's see. How am I going to do this? Okay, this would be good. All right. So let's start with a little kirtan. We got everybody here. Only 12 people. But that's all right. More people will join us. Go up a little bit. That's better. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Te Bhakti Vedanta Samini Tina Vane Namaste Saraswati Devi Murvani Pracharane Sesha Shunyavadi Vasacharisachane Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Vedanta Siva Sari Gauravatarina Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Vedanta Siva Sari Gauravatarina Shri Krishna Chaitanya Purnijananda Shri Advaita Vedanta Siva Sari Gaurabhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Rama 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 Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Rama 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 Rama, Hare Hare, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Go, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Jai Go, Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhattacharya, also Tedas Shimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanara Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anandagoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadwaita Kedara Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shayam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuram Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaura Vani Pracharane Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadeja Tarane. So welcome everyone to the evening Caitanya Caritamrta reading. And this evening we're going to have to end, I think, exactly at 6 because I have another program tonight. It's someone else's birthday, not mine. Actually, for those of you who want to know, my Vyasa Puja will be celebrated on the 16th of October, both in New Zealand, Australia, Fiji, America, not both, but every place, and Europe. And we'll be sending out, maybe tomorrow or the next day, I'll tell everybody the timing, but it will be on the actual day on all the different places. Therefore, I'll be doing 2 different Zoom meetings. So the devotees all over the world will get a chance to interact and express appreciation, and we'll be able to hear some Krishna conscious philosophy. So that'll be on the 16th of October for those who are interested. Okay, so let's go on to the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. Today we are hearing about Lord Chaitanya's description about who or what a Vaishnava is. And we'll be hearing about the different types of Vaishnavas. Of course, we're all aware there's the Kanishtadikari, Madhyamadikari, and the Uttamadikari. Now, it's interesting in different contexts. These particular categories are described differently, which I found really interesting. For example, Kanishtadikari is described as a materialistic devotee, one who goes to the temple, one who doesn't have much knowledge of Shastra, and ultimately one who just sees Krishna in the temple and doesn't see Krishna in everyone's heart because he doesn't have knowledge of Sambandha Gyan. That's a Kanishtadikari. And then there's the Majjhima, which means the middle category. And the Majjhima sometimes is described as someone who doesn't have much scriptural knowledge but has firm faith. Other times it's described as someone who discriminates between the devotee, and he makes friendship with the devotees, the innocent, he tries to help the innocent, the rascals, and he just avoids them. Doesn't hate them, he just avoids them. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he interacts appropriately. And that's what a Majjhima Adhikari is considered to be. Of course, there's different levels of Majjhima Adhikaris. There's Kanishta Majjhima, Majjhima Majjhima, and Uttama Majjhima Adhikari. And then above that, there's the Uttama Adhikari. Uttama Adhikari is described as the first class devotee who is simply absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And when the Uttama Adhikari preaches Krishna consciousness, he steps down, at least externally, to the Majjhima platform. So there has to be some discrimination, so he's able to do that. Anyway, let's hear about some of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's descriptions of these different grades of devotees from the Caitanya Caritamrta Madhya Lila, chapter 15. And we left off right in the middle of text 106, in the middle of the purport. So I decided to stop yesterday because there's a lot of stuff I have to explain. Okay, let's go on to the Caitanya Caritamrta. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaurvata Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaurvata Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaurvata Vrinda. So first, we're going to recite this verse. It's actually Sanskrit. Shravanjanaya, no, it's actually Bengali. Shravanjanaya Bhakti Adhikari, Uttama Madhyama Kanishta Shradanusari, Yahara Komala Shrada, Ese Kanishta Jana, Krame Krame Teno Bhakta, Haibe Uttama, Rati Prema Taratam Ye, Mokta Taratama. Okay. A person who has attained firm faith is a real candidate for advancing in Krishna consciousness. According to the faith, there are first class, second class, and neophyte devotees. So here the description is according to faith, how much faith one has. One who has preliminary faith is called a Kanishta Adhikari, or a neophyte. Preliminary faith is not firm faith. Firm faith is described as Shraddha Shabde Vishwasa Kahi Sudra and Nishchaya, that believing if you simply do what Krishna wants, everything will be taken care of. That's firm faith. So Kanishta, he believes in God, but doesn't have so much faith in the Vedic literatures, maybe not so much faith in the spiritual master, but there's some sentiment there. So he's actually considered a devotee of the lowest class. The neophyte, however, can become an advanced devotee if he strictly follows the regulator principles set down by the spiritual master. Therefore, it is on the basis of faith and attachment to Krishna that one can judge who is a Majjhima Adhikari or an Uttama Adhikari. And that's from the Caitanya Caritamrta Madhya, lila, which we'll read later on, 22nd chapter, text 64, 69, and 71. So why is it, so naturally the question should arise, why is it that if he strictly follows the regular principles set down by the spiritual master, his faith will increase and he'll become a more advanced devotee? That's an interesting question. Well, the answer is given by Krishna in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. What is that answer? Pratyaksha bhagamam dharmyam shushukam kartamavyam rajavidya rajaguyam pavitramidam uttamam pratyaksha bhagamam dharmyam shushukam kartamavyam. What does that mean? That means this Krishna consciousness, Rajavidya, is the most king of all education. Rajaguyam, but it's a secret. It's not so secretive, but you can't realize it unless you are pious. That's mentioned by in the Srimad Bhagavatam by Shukadeva Goswami. Nivrittatarshar upagemanas bhavo shrotra bano biranat kautamashloka gunananabat bana puman vidajeta bana pashu. Not that if someone is a killer of the soul or killer of animals, it's not possible for him to understand. So anyway, so if one follows the rules and regulations, getting back to the Bhagavad Gita verse, one follows the rules and regulations, then pratyaksha bhagamam dharmyam. Pratyaksha, aksha means to see, prat means direct. So one directly sees what? The spiritual platform, or Krishna. Well, obviously Krishna. So in other words, realization. One gets realization, vijnana. That's realization. Jnana is knowledge, vijnana is realization. So in other words, as you progress in spiritual life, then everything's revealed to you. Just like the sun, when it rises in the morning, reveals all the different colors before the sun rises. You may see some shadows. That's it. And you may not know exactly what is there, and you may not have faith in what is actually there. But when the sun comes up, the first thing you see is just like black and white figures or black and white buildings or whatever is there. And then when the sun comes fully up, you see all the colors and you see things as they actually are. So this is the description given by Krishna. Whenever one is enlightened by the knowledge by which essence is destroyed, one's knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights up the daytime. Yasmin vigate sarvam evam vigatam bhavati. One who knows Krishna knows everything. Not that he's omniscient in the same sense that Krishna is omniscient. Krishna, of course, knows everything past, present, and future, but a pure devotee doesn't. He has limited knowledge, but his knowledge is perfect. Anyway, so as the neophyte performs devotional service, he gets more realization. That realization reinforces his faith. Just like if I tell you, chant Hare Krishna and see what happens. And you chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And then all of a sudden, Krishna reveals himself to you gradually. I mean, you look at the deity and you see, wow, I'm seeing the deity for the first time, or I'm understanding the spiritual master for the first time in my life. Then that reinforces the faith. Faith is reinforced, in other words, by experience. Spiritual experience comes from chanting and following the Krishna conscious process. Okay, very simple. It's just have to follow. It is thus concluded that even a neophyte devotee is superior to the karmis and jnanis because he has full faith in chanting the holy name of the Lord. A karmi or jnani, regardless of his greatness, has no faith in Lord Vishnu. So let me explain what's meant by karmi. In this particular case, it means one who thinks that they act in a certain way, work real hard, and they're interested in the fruits of their activities, that's a karmi. Jnani means he thinks he's going to figure everything out simply by his word jugglery or mental speculation. And ultimately, a jnani may come to the point of spiritual, impersonal spiritual realization, and if he's really lucky, then he may come to the point of spiritual, perfect spiritual realization, which is personal spiritual realization, but that's very rare. Bahunam janmanamante gyanavan mam prabhajate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudrulabha. And that's described by Krishna in the Gita, where he says, Bahunam, after many births and deaths, one who's actually in knowledge comes to understand that Krishna is there. Krishna is the source of everything. Okay. So the karmi jnani doesn't have faith in the holy name or in devotional service. One may be advanced religiously, but if he's not trained in devotional service, he has very little credit on the transcendental platform. So advanced religiously in this particular context means one is very expert in reciting Sanskrit or Hebrew or whatever, and he knows all the rituals, all the mudras, all the mantras, all the whatever. That's what it means to be advanced religiously. But we are interested in being advanced in devotional service, not simply on the platform of mundane religiosity. But if he's not trained in devotional service, he has very little credit on the transcendental platform. Even a neophyte devotee engaged in deity worship, in accordance with the regulations set forth by the spiritual master, is in a position superior to that of the fruitive worker and speculative philosopher. Very, very important point. Even a neophyte devotee, of course that's the Kanishta Adhikari, one who just thinks Krishna is in the temple. Of course, one who just thinks Krishna is in the temple will just see everything as separate from Krishna when he steps outside the temple, which is not the correct consciousness, because as Krishna states, in the Bhagavad Gita, Yomam Pashati Sarvatra, Sarvam Chamahi Pashati, Tashaham Na Pranashami, Sachame Na Pranashati. The one should see Krishna in everything and everywhere, and that person will never be lost to Krishna. So that is our process, to see Krishna in everything and everywhere, not just in the temple. You know, the temple's holy, but the rest of everywhere else is just for the birds, or for me. Temple is for God, the rest of everything is for me. Okay, let's go ahead. Text 107. Eke Krishna name kare sarva papakshaya navavida bhakti purna namahaite hoya. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna once, a person is relieved from all the reactions of a sinful life. One can complete the 9 processes of devotional service simply by chanting the holy name. Isn't that wonderful? Makes it very easy. The 9 processes, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smartam, etc. You can do all of them simply by chanting the holy name, and all of them are dependent on the chanting and the hearing. Shravanam and Kirtanam are the foundational principles of the 9 principles of devotional service, 9 practices or processes of devotional service, without which Shravanam and Kirtan, you won't be able to do the other processes perfectly or nicely. Why? You have to hear to be able to understand how to do the other processes. In this material world, to be able to understand how to follow any process, to do anything that's more than like very simple or any complicated process, you have to have some instructions. So you have to hear or read, which is a type of hearing. Okay. So now Prabhupada's going to quote from Prahlad Maharaj's instructions. The 9 types of devotional service are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 5th chapter, text 23. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vadanam Dashyam Sakyam Atma Divedanam Iti Pushar Pitha Vishnu Bhaktischin Avalakshana Kriyeta Bhagavatyada Tanmane Ditam Uttamam. The process of devotional service entails hearing, chanting, remembering the holy name, form, qualities and entourage of the Lord, offering service according to the time, place, and performer, worshiping the deity, offering prayers, always considering oneself the eternal servant of Krishna, making friends with him, and dedicating everything unto him. These 9 items of devotional service, when directly offered to Krishna, constitute the highest attainment in life. This is the verdict of the revealed scriptures. As for being freed from all sinful reactions by chanting the holy name of Krishna only once, one must chant the holy name without committing any offenses. Then chanting one name is sufficient to rescue a living being from all sinful reactions. Such a person who chants the holy name of the Lord offenselessly is very important and worshipable. Indeed, the 9 devotional processes, beginning with Shravanam and Kirtanam, can all be attained at once if one simply chants the holy name of the Lord offenselessly. I think you all know what the offenses are. There's 10 offenses, basically. Should I go over them? I guess so. One is the blasphemy of the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord, number 1. Number 2 is think the names of the demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, evildoer, independent of the holy name of Lord Vishnu. Number 3 is disobey the order of the spiritual master. Number 4 is the blasphemy of Vedic literatures or literatures that contain the same purport. Number 5 is to think the glories of the Lord, of the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, or imagination. Number 6 is to give some perverted interpretation concerning the holy name of the Lord. Number 7 is to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting. Number 8 is to think that chanting is one of the ritualistic activities prescribed in the Vedas and other literatures, such as the Karma Kanja activities. 9 is to preach the glories of the holy name of the Lord to those who are faithless. In other words, we don't want people to commit offenses or give them more knowledge that will enable them to commit offenses. Like if you tell someone, simply by chanting, you get rid of all bad karma, then they'll chant Hare Krishna, drink their liquor, have illicit sex, take intoxication, and gamble and chant Hare Krishna in between everything. So then you'll be responsible for that, for leading them to the den of iniquity. So anyway, and then the 10th offense is to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord and maintain material attachments, even understanding all the instructions in this matter. And also, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur states, inattentive chanting is the root cause of all the offenses. Because if you're attentive, you'll know what you're doing and you won't let your mind wander, and you will not commit any of the other offenses on chanting. So it's very important to observe that. Now, however, you may say, well, I'm committing some or many of the offenses, hopefully not all the offenses, but I'm committing some of the offenses, so should I stop chanting? Then I won't be able to commit any offense. No, but then you'll be committing the offense of disobeying the order of the spiritual master, and so many other things. You actually be committing many of the 10 offenses on chanting if you stop chanting because you think it's something material, etc., etc., etc. So don't stop chanting. The only solution for offensive chanting is to keep chanting and eventually become attentive and not offensive. You just keep trying and Krishna will help you. Krishna is very kind. Krishna knows. He's a person. He's not a ritual. I mean, many people who take up Krishna consciousness ultimately start to think that Krishna is a ritual. Of course, in one sense, the ritual represents Krishna, but Krishna is not just a ritual. That if you do things in the right way, it's not like a machine. For example, I have this computer that I'm using, and because all the different parts are working properly, it serves a purpose. However, If you take one part out, it won't serve the purpose. It'll break down. And it doesn't have any free will. Like I can criticize this computer, which I won't do because I don't want to commit a mad computer offense. But I can criticize this computer, I can think badly of it. And the computer does not have the free will to say, all right, buddy, I'm not going to function for you. The computer does not have an independent personality, as much as it may seem, it does have an independent personality. So anyway, so the Lord is pleased with one's devotion. So one simply needs to try the best. In other words, if you're not able to focus for one reason or other because your mind is just like a Kali Yuga mind, but you're trying your best, then Krishna appreciates. Just try your best. I understand your mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, and wild. It's completely wild. I understand that. Krishna understands that. And all Krishna wants you to do is try your very best. And then you get an A in your course. Okay. So in this regard, Srila Jiva Goswami states in his book, Bhakti Sundara 173, Yadyapi Anya Bhakti Kalo Kartavya Tada Kirtana Kya Bhakti Sam Yogenaiva. Out of the 9 processes of devotional service, Kirtan is very important. Srila Jiva Goswami therefore instructs that the other processes, such as, here we go, Archana, Vandana, Dasha, and Sakya, should be executed, but they must be preceded and followed by Kirtan, the chanting of the holy name. Exactly what I said before. And Kirtan must be preceded by what? Shravanam, hearing. So both are essential. The kirtan, and when we perform kirtan before we do any of these activities, it actually spiritualizes the atmosphere, spiritualizes our consciousness so that we can perform these activities properly. We have therefore introduced this system in all of our centers. Archana, Arati, Boga, offering, deity dressing, and decoration are all preceded and followed by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And you'll never guess what that holy name is. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, Diksha Purascharya Vidya Pekshana Kare Jiva Sparsheya Chandala Savare Udare. One does not have to undergo initiation or execute the activities required before initiation. One simply has to vibrate the holy name with his lips. Thus, even a man in the lowest class, Chandala, can be delivered. So this doesn't mean that you should forget about initiation. That means the holy name doesn't wait for initiation. But in order to come to the stage of chanting purely, you need to take initiation. It's part of the process listed by Srila Jiva Goswami and actually Rupa Goswami. And you need to follow the facilitation, the help you're getting from your spiritual master and other great sages who engage you in Krishna consciousness according to your psychophysical nature. Just like Arjuna. Arjuna already had a guru. In one sense, Krishna was his guru, but he also had another initiating guru. But Arjuna needed that direct instruction. And Arjuna's instruction, in one sense, is applicable for us today. But in another sense, it's not completely applicable in the sense, the practical sense that we're not supposed to go out and fight and do things like Arjuna was supposed to do. The external manifestations are quite different. Therefore, we need the guidance of superior authorities. Otherwise, we go off on a rail. I've seen so many devotees go off on different rails. The rail of Ritvikism, the rail of Sahajism. There's so many different rails. Like a train rides on rails, so that's why we talk about this going off the rails. So Srila Jiva Goswami explains Diksha in his Bhakti Sundarbha 283. Divyam Gyanamayato Dajat Kuryat Papasya Papasya Sangshayam. Shailen is saying, don't sleep. I'm not sleeping. Someone is sleeping, obviously. She's saying that to someone else who is sleeping during class. I must be very soothing to help people sleep. So maybe you can prescribe me as a sleep medicine. Kuryat papasya sangshayam tasmat diksheti saprokta deshikais tattva kovidaha. Diksha, this is a very important principle. Diksha is the process by which one can awaken his transcendental knowledge and vanquish all reactions caused by sinful activity. Because of Diksha we call initiation in ISKCON. A person expert in the study of the real scriptures knows this process as Diksha, the regulative principles. Ooh. Let me just turn that off. Okay. The regulative principles of Diksha are explained in the Hari Bhakti Vilas 2, 3-4. And the Bhakti Sandarbha 283 is stated, Dvijanam Anupetanam Swakarmadhya Yanadishu Yatadikaro Natihaya Shach Jopanaya Jopanayanadanu Tatadra Dikshitanam tu Mantra Divarchanadishu Nadikaros Chata Kuryat Atmanam Shiva Sangstutam. Even though born in a Brahmin family, one cannot engage in Vedic rituals without being initiated and having a sacred thread. Although born in a Brahmin family, one becomes a Brahmin only after initiation of the sacred thread ceremony. Unless one is initiated as a Brahmin, one cannot worship the holy name properly. Wow. According to Vaishnava regulated principles, one must be initiated as a Brahmin. The Hari Bhakti Vilas 2.6 quotes the following injunction from the Vishnu Yamala. Adikshitasya vamoru kritam sarvam niraratakam pashu yonim avapnoti diksha virahito janaha. Unless one is initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, all his devotional activities are useless. A person who is not properly initiated can descend again into the animal species. Better get yourself initiated. Hari Bhakti Vilas 2.10 further quotes, Ato Gurum Pranamya Evam Sarvaswam Vinivedyacha Griniyad Vaishnavam Mantram Diksha Purvam Vidanataha. It is the duty of every human being to surrender to a bona fide spiritual master, giving him everything, body, mind, and intelligence. One must take Vaishnava initiation from him. The Bhakti Sandarbha 298 gives the following quotation from the Tattva Sagara. Yata kanchanatam yati kansham rasa vidanataha tata diksha vidanena dvijatvam jayate nrinam. By chemical manipulation, bell metal is turned into gold when touched by mercury. Similarly, when a person is properly initiated, he can acquire the qualities of a Brahmin. The Hari Bhakti Vilas 17:11-12, in discussing the Purascharya process, quotes the following verses from the Agastya Samhita. Purascharya means that which comes before, the activity that comes before initiation. Puja traikalikhi nicham japas tarpanamevacha homo brahmana bhuktischa purishcharanam uchate guror labhasya mantrasya prasadena yatavadhi panchango siddhyai puraschaitadvatiyate. In the morning, afternoon, and evening, one should worship the deity, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, offer oblations, perform a fire sacrifice, and feed the brahmanas. These 5 activities constitute Purascharya. To attain full success when taking initiation from the spiritual master, one should first perform these Purascharya processes. So, of course, these particular recommendations are, let's say, applicable to a certain situation. We don't demand that every day someone before taking initiation should worship the deity. We demand that they chant Hare Krishna. But offering oblations, performing a fire sacrifice, and feeding the brahmanas may not be applicable in all circumstances. So sometimes some of these injunctions are time-bound. Time-bound means they're applicable to a certain time, place, and circumstance. And sometimes you'll find injunctions that are eternal injunctions, like chant the holy name. That's an eternal injunction which never changes. But other injunctions change according to time, place, and circumstance, countries, culture, etc., etc., etc. Now here Prabhupada is going to explain what he means by Purascharya in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So Prabhupada says the word Puraha means before, and Charya means activities. Due to the necessity of these activities, we do not immediately initiate disciples in the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. For 6 months, a candidate for initiation must first attend RTN classes in the Shastras, practice the regulative principles, and associate with other devotees. When one is actually advanced in the Purascharya Vidhi, he is recommended by the local temple president for initiation. It is not that anyone can be suddenly initiated without meeting the requirements. When one is further advanced by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra 16 rounds daily, following the regulative principles, and attending classes, he receives the sacred thread Brahminical recognition after the second 6 months. So, of course, for ladies, they don't receive a sacred thread. It's not really necessary. It's actually a symbol. It's just a symbol. It's a recognition. It doesn't make one Krishna conscious, or without it, it's not that one becomes less Krishna conscious or anything like that. It's a symbol, and it's mainly meant for preaching Krishna consciousness. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave all of his male disciples the Brahman thread, or the sacred thread, whereas previously, if someone was not from a Brahmin family, even at the time of initiation or Vaishnava initiation, they wouldn't get the sacred thread. They would just get the Vaishnava mantras. Anyway, there's more details to it than this, and I'm not going to get into at this particular point. So let me see, without meeting the requirements. And it's interesting that Srila Prabhupada sometimes, I wouldn't say broke the rules, but sometimes stretched these a little bit when he was actually starting a particular yatra. I remember, where was it? Australia, when Prabhupada brought the deity there, and he installed the deity in Sydney. There wasn't anyone second initiated, and there are a lot of people just come to the temple or a few days before, and Prabhupada just did a whole slew of initiations, second initiation, first initiations, just to kickstart the movement. So Prabhupada took a risk, even though in one sense it's against some of the injunctions or even what Prabhupada stated. But Prabhupada took a risk to spread Krishna consciousness, and because Prabhupada took a risk, we have a flourishing yatra in Sydney, Australia. So the Acharya sometimes can deal with these details. These are not principles that can never be changed. There are sometimes details. I mean, for example, you have Narada Muni was initiated he was a little tiny boy, initiated just for 4 months during the rainy season when the sages were staying with him. I mean, there's so many different stories. Another story, of course, is Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj went to the forest because he wanted a kingdom greater than that of Lord Brahma. And he approached Narada Muni, and Narada Muni gave initiation pretty quickly. There wasn't too much of a Purusharya there. So the Acharya has some leeway in dealing with this, but only under extreme circumstances or when it's absolutely necessary. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas 17.4, 5, and 7, it is stated, Vinayena na siddha shan mantro varsha shatarapi kritena yena labate sadako vanchitam palam. Actually, let me finish with this and then I'll make another comment, what we were talking about before. Purischarana sampano mantrohi paladayaya kaha atapuras kriham kuryat mantravit siddhi kangshaya purashkriyahi mantranam pradhanam viryamuchate virihino yatadehi sarvakamashu karam karmasu nakshamaha purischarana hino hi tata mantra prakirtitaha. Without performing the Purusharya activities, one cannot become perfect even by chanting this mantra for hundreds of years. But for one who has undergone the Purusharya Vidhi process, can easily attain success very easily. Can attain success very easily. If one wishes to perfect his initiation, he must first undergo the Purusharya activities. The Purusharya process is the life force by which one is successful in chanting the mantra. Without the life force, one cannot do anything. Similarly, without the life force of Purusharya Vidhi, no mantra can be perfected. Of course, when we're talking about Purusharya Vidhi, generally, we're talking about the second initiation in ISKCON. Of course, before the first initiation, there has to be some preliminary activity too. Following the four regulator principles, chanting 16 rounds, etc., 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 like that. But Prabhupada said that first initiation can be given very, very liberally if someone's following the four regulator principles and chanting 16 rounds without making them jump through a lot of hoops. And that really gives someone hope and recognition. So it is actually very important not to make taking first initiation so difficult. Second initiation, one requires that one be observed by the spiritual master or the spiritual master's representative. And one has to make sure the person is loyal. In his Bhakti Sandarbha 283-84, Srila Jiva Goswami describes the importance of deity worship and initiation diksha as follows. Ooh, that's a long verse. We'll finish that verse. Didyapisi Bhagavan Mate Pancharatradhiva Darchana Marigasha Avasya Katvam Nashti Tadvinapi Sharanapatyadinam Ekatare Napi Purushartha Siddhair Abhihitatvat Tatapi Sri Naradadi Vartmanu Suradvihi Sri Bhagavata Sahasambandha Vishesham Diksha Vidhanena Shri Guru Charana Sampaditam Shakir Shadbir Shakir Shadbi Kritayam Dikshayam Arjanam Avasyam Kriyetaiva Idyapi Swarupato Nashti Tadapi Prayaha Swabhavato Dehadi Sambhandena Kadarya Shilanambi Shipta Chitanam Jananam Tat San Kochi Karanaya Srimad Rishi Prabhritivir Atrarichana Margit Vachit Kachit Kachin Maryada Stapiti Pitashti. It is the Srimad Bhagavatam's opinion that the process of deity worship is not actually necessary, just as the specific prescriptions of the Pancharatra and other scriptures do not have to be followed. The Bhagavatam enjoins that even without practicing deity worship, one can achieve the complete success of human life by any of the other devotional processes, such as simply offering oneself at the Lord's feet for his protection. Nevertheless, Vaishnavas following in the path of Srinarada and his successors endeavor to establish a personal relationship with the Lord by receiving the grace of a bona fide spiritual master through initiation, and in this tradition, the devotees are obliged at the time of initiation to begin engaging in deity worship. Although deity worship is not essential, the material conditioning of most candidates for devotional service requires that they engage in this activity. When we consider their bodily and mental conditions, we find that the character of such candidates is impure and their minds are agitated. Therefore, to rectify this material conditioning, the great sage Narada and others have at different times recommended various kinds of regulations for deity worship. Let's see how much longer this purport is. I think it's quite long. Ooh, it is very long. Well, guess what? Okay, so we are going to end here. And we're going to take some questions. And I said I have to end this class in about 7 or 8 minutes. So we're going to continue in the middle of this purport. The purport may take up tomorrow's whole class. Okay, so you can ask your question either by typing in the chat window, or you can unmute yourself and talk, or you can raise your hand. Does anyone have a question? Okay, Jai Radhika raised her hand. Jai Radhika, you have a question?
Yes. Thank you very much. Please accept my humble address.
Haribol.
Sure. My question is, again, I can't see you. So my question is regarding So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed Nityananda Prabhu to go preach in Bengal, and then few other devotees to do household chores, and a devotee to actually work for the sun. So and today we spoke about how the foundation of devotional services like Shravanam, Kirtanam and all that. So I'm just trying to ascertain, like, projecting to probably my mundane life, like usually we feel bliss in serving the devotees, deities and the gurus, like directly or indirectly, but and also we do know that the success potential lies in their spiritual masters and instructions too. So for me, like I'm trying to think that to work, just to go work like in a material mundane life, like how do we like make progress in spiritual life, and also like we don't really feel that sort of bliss, and like I usually feel disease condition, like the days that I have to work like from whole morning whole night sitting in front of a computer, and then not able to read or chant extra rounds or something like that. So I was just trying to think that, how like, instruction that you just work your whole life.
I think the reason you're not feeling bliss is you're not connecting the work you're doing for Krishna. In other words, you're working. I mean, there's many different reasons why you're working. One reason is to maintain yourself, obviously. Another reason is I told you to get a job.
Yes.
And to be practical in this world. But the point is, we're maintaining ourselves. We do a lot of things to maintain ourselves, not just working. We get up in the morning, we cook. Of course, we offer to Krishna, but basically sometimes we cook just because we have to survive. We have to go to sleep at night. We all sleep for several hours at least every night. And so if we connect these in our mind to our service to Krishna, like you're working so that you'll have the facilities for serving Krishna. Like you'll have a place to live. You'll be stable in your life so you can continue Krishna consciousness your whole life. And if one works enough, they have can acquire some money where they can engage it in Krishna service. So it's a question of mentally connecting all these different activities with your service, and then then you become very enthusiastic. I oftentimes give the example of a lady who works in the bank, and she works in a teller cage in the bank, and she's sitting there all day long, and it's quite a torturous activity. But at the same time, she has a picture of her little children and of her little husband right in front of her, and she realizes why she's doing what you're doing. So our life oftentimes becomes dry when we don't remember why we're doing what we're doing. Now, even an activity like deity worship can become very dry if one doesn't remember why or who they're serving and why they're doing what they're doing, or the chanting can become very dry. Sometimes people say, oh, this chanting is very dry, because they're not remembering the purpose of what they're doing. So I would say, whether you're at work, please bring some picture of Krishna with you. Remind yourself every hour, stand up and do every hour. Just think, I am doing this for Krishna because my spiritual master asked me to do it, and it's practical. It's engaging in so many ways in Krishna's service. Like Lord Chaitanya advised this one devotee, you mentioned him, Shivananda Sain. He said you should actually maintain Vasudev Dutt. So those who do work, it's just like Varnashram. There's different parts of the social body. In Varnashram, there's the stomach, that's the working part. There's the legs, there's the arms, and then there's the head. And we all work together, and not that one part is worse or better than the other. All the parts work together in cooperation. And in this way, there's actually functioning society. So if you see things in a holistic way like that, then perhaps it won't be so difficult. But if you keep forgetting Krishna, see, you're forgetting Krishna, and you're forgetting how this is connected to Krishna, and then it becomes a very difficult procedure. All right? I mean, I'm happy you're working.
Yeah. I mean, I do offer it. Like, I don't forget, and in between I listen to class. It's just like I was thinking from Shivananda Sen's point of view as well. Like in general, but you have answered that all the questions, yeah.
Yeah.
Like in general, how, like, if somebody's so engrossed into, like, life is really short, and get that bliss that serving the devotees and the deities and Gurudev, you get a different bliss, and you actually make progress in spiritual life as well. But when you're like stuck, all the only thing you have is, yeah, Guru's instruction. And then again, we do, like, deity service and everything we do, we offer it to the deities back
Yeah,
again
yeah.
every day. It's just a
And you're
drop.
still serving the deities, aren't you?
Yeah,
I mean, when you have a day off, you still do some deity service, don't you?
I do. Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And every
life,
day as
life
well,
isn't
we at home.
life is not that bad.
No, no, yeah, no. And every day we chant, every day, like, I serve my deities every day, 2 times, 3 times. I'm home now, so 3 times, and do have, and try to listen to some class the days, and even if it's late, I try to read. Otherwise, I feel it's a condition, diseased life. So
Yeah.
yeah, so but it's just, I was thinking in general, yeah,
It actually trains one up to see Krishna everywhere
yeah,
when
correct,
one has to work a job.
yeah,
And then you become, I would say, less complacent and more grateful when you're actually doing these spiritual activities,
correct, yeah,
and more responsible too in many different ways.
yeah,
I think it's I've seen it's actually very helpful. I've seen many devotees who live in the temple and are doing service in the temple. They're maybe in Maya, and many devotees who are working outside. They're very
correct,
great devotees.
very true.
It's just a question of your consciousness, and it doesn't depend on the circumstance. As long as you're engaged in activities that are not sinful, unless you're engaged, ordinary business is all right. Whatever you're doing in your job is fine.
Yeah,
So we have to work to maintain ourselves, and then you can use the results of your working to serve the Vaishnavas.
agree.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is very wonderful. Yeah,
You are so fortunate. I mean, sometimes people are engrossed in family life, and then they have to deal with their husband or their wife and their children and a job.
Yeah, true. It's true.
I mean, you just have a job to deal with. I mean, maybe you'll have a husband in the future, but you just have a job to deal with right now.
Yeah,
And then you have plenty of opportunities to engage in deity worship and to remember Krishna throughout the day.
correct. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I do have to end now because I do have another program pretty soon tonight. And of course, there's one other question. Let me answer this. It's in the chat window. Hari Krishna Gurudev, please explain what basis. What is the difference between Majjhima, Kanishta, Majjhima, and Majjhima Uttama? Okay. Okay, so in each category, the Kanishta Adhikari, Majjhima Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari, you can break it down into further divisions. In other words, a Kanishta Majjhima is a beginning Majjhima, one who just stepped out of the Kanishta role and is not fully realized in the Majjhima practice. And a Majjhima is one who's fully realized and practicing the Majjhima practice. And an Uttama Majjhima is one who is actually just on the verge of becoming a Uttama Adhikari, and he's completely dedicated to preaching Krishna consciousness and saving others. I mean, it's just, in other words, there's different divisions. It's not all of a sudden, snap, you're a Majjhima. All of a sudden, snap, you're an Uttama. It's gradual. It's not like we're giving clear definitions, but it's not just like a line that one crosses and then instantaneously you're in the other category. So that's really the point. It says, lower, middle, and higher. That's all. Okay, so we're going to end now, and we'll see everybody tomorrow night or tomorrow morning, depending on where you are in the world. Same time, same station. All glories to